Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining today's call that where we are going to discuss about the lessons and success stories of Unite. That is the trade union, registered trade union in Tamil Nadu. And welcome, Comrade Andumani Welkin. Thanks for accepting our invite and to talk and discuss with us. So I'd like to give a little bit intro about the program. As Ambedkar King Study Circle is working against all discriminations like caste, class, gender, and this particular topic is about predominantly about the class. But in India, the class and caste are so inextricably coupled. So it is so relevant to the organization like AKC, which is taking up all sort of discrimination. And also, this talk and discussion is very important on two fronts. One is the very unprecedented incidents that are taking place, followed by the Black Lives Movement uprising, followed by George Floyd's murder. And second, that it is a very unexpected outcome that what we have got last 2 days before. That is, there is a first case in the US on caste discrimination in an IT company is reported, and a very positive outcome is the California state has come in favor of an employee, especially who is discriminated based on the caste. So as we are members of the society, all we are trying to build a society that works for all. But very unfortunately, because of our institutionalized problems that like the class, race, gender, that the society is not working for all. And some problems are truly individual, that individual as an individual you have to solve it. But most of the problems are at social level. And these problems are predominantly categorized as social, political, class, and cultural levels. And many times, all a problem will overlap in all other parallels or the domains. For example, if you take a problem of unemployment, you cannot say it's a merely a social problem. It's a political problem and also a class problem. So some problems, as we seen, we can solve as an individual. Many problems in the world has to be solved collectively. And one of the problems is the issues that we as a working class is facing in our workplace. And COVID is a very classic example that after COVID, our working time is increased by and large. The people are working definitely more than 8 hours, and the productivity is more. Some of the companies I hear they are giving holidays because they have seen overproductivity. But we lament individually that our working hours are increasing, but we do not know what to do. So this call is exactly about it. That Anbumani and his friends, other comrades have come together very boldly and built a trade union movement in Tamil Nadu by picking up the problems that is faced by the workers in the IT and ITS. And that's more specifically today is going to talk about IT employees and the pandemic, where he will be sharing more the problem that Indian IT class is facing as retrenchment and resignation. Unlike in the US, where the companies are following the layoff rules to some extent, in India they are not following, and also the Indian women in the IT are facing the sexual harassment, like the Cisco IT worker face discrimination based on caste. Definitely in India, the people are facing discrimination on the grounds of caste and ethnicity, language, religion, and Anbumani is going to share his experience and his organizational experience and what they have done to mobilize the people and where they are in solving it. Thank you, Comrade Wilkin. Now you can go at please.
Yeah. And just one correction. I'm Adaganambi Velkin, not Andumani.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
Okay.
call you only Wilkin, so that the same of it.
No problem. So, okay, I'll quickly go through the slides I have. So, it will give an understanding of what we are doing and what context we are doing. So, as Karthik told, I'm from the Unite Union of IT and ITS Employees. We are a registered trade union working in a particular geographical location called Tamil Nadu. We are not an all India organization. We are a particular state, and we are in coordination with multiple unions, state level unions, IT employees union, in India, and we are trying to have a national coordination, because in state-wise the labor law changes, the approach to labor law changes. So we have, in our context, it is best to have the state level unions. So in that context, I'll try to have classified the sections into three major categories. One, I'll give a set of facts given by the IT Ministry and of India and the NASSCOM, the employees body. And from that, we'll understand what the problems are there and what is the approach we are taking towards addressing the problems. So if you see this is the Indian GDP share. If you see after 1980, the service sector, which the IT industry is a major contributor to it, is now almost about to reach 60% of the overall GDP. Karthik, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, okay.
And you were...
Okay, because my video, it seems, is stuck here. Okay, I'll go ahead. So,
if anything, I'll...
Yeah, okay. If there is any interruption, just give me a call in the phone. I'll go ahead. So, if you see the contribution of GDP by sector-wise in the India, it is almost the service sector becomes the major contributor now, and all the primary agriculture sector are all now become only 20% or less. So this is one major factor. So the GDP is continuously increasing in service sector, and when we look at the contribution of IT to GDP and its classification from local market, from India, we are getting only 20 to 25% of 20 to 25 billion of US dollars. All the major share, 80 to 70% are coming from exports to various countries. And the consistent pattern is domestic market is not growing in the rate equal to the export market. So there is almost a stagnation happening in the domestic market, where the investments are not in par and the demand is not in par with the global market. So we are highly dependent on the export. So these are the countries India IT service exports to. So, and the majority, the 62% is US, and US and UK are the 80% of the export revenue generated. All other put together, we almost dependent on US and UK. If we will see what the issue is in future slides. And when we see the employment data shows that the people who are employed for domestic IT works, the numbers remain very constant, like the revenue generated we saw in a couple of slides before. And the IT and BPO sector are mildly growing. So, but what the graphs and others in IT Ministry website, the net addition data, so they don't put it as a graph. They just put it as a number, and they just ignore that. So whenever a layoff retrenchment happens, the ministry comebacks, or whenever a MP questions about what is the impact of mass retrenchments announced by the companies like Cognizant and Verizon happens. So the public representatives, ministers, they come back and say, see, the overall growth is high, or there is an overall growth, so we don't need to worry about that. So they don't get into the layoff or retrenchment aspects happening in the industry. But if you see the actual new additions happening, for the past 5 years, it is consistently declining. So that is the impact we were faced before we started the union. So before we started Unite on 2017 December, before that we were having a lot of discussions whether to have union or to go with a socio-cultural organization. We were even functioning as a socio-cultural organization. So a lot of aspects, a lot of time and years went into discussion on that. But in the last 5 years, we could clearly see the number of retrenchments the numbers have increased drastically. It started from 100. Now, Cognizant is the benchmark now. They have announced 12,000 employees and they are executing it without any hindrance from the government. So we saw the details, and these are the risk factors which I have collected from the top 10 companies, MNCs, who are working in IT service, who are working as an IT service provider. So the risk factor they mentioned in their documents are Brexit, US and UK protectionism or the anti-outsourcing policies, a trade war between superpowers, and IMF synchronized slowdown. So the global economic slowdown, which IMF announced 6 to 8 months back as a synchronized slowdown. It's not few countries which are going down, it's a global economy going down. So if we have not curtailed it, it would get into a depression, is what the IMF statement came up. And these 4 points were already there before the pandemic. And now the pandemic added to it. It has aggravated the issue. So along with it, decreasing the number of new employment in India, and with all these risk factors, and the US, particularly the US and UK protectionism, which Indian IT market highly depends on for the export, is now aggravated by the pandemic condition. So this is the facts we have. Now on the problems, I'll take few examples to give an idea or to demonstrate a pattern. So we have multiple cases. We are handling multiple cases and multiple issues are going on. Terms like layoff and retrenchments are used across the media. So in India, according to the Indian labor law, layoff is a temporary arrangement. So you can lay off an employee for 15 days or a few months with half pay, and you need to take them back after the layoff period. But retrenchments are a permanent action, and it has to be get approved from the government. Even layoff needs to be approved from the government. But all the job cuts happening right now, and even before the pandemic, they were illegal. So the right term in Indian labor law context is the illegal retrenchment is what happening across the industry. And there is no question by the ministry against these companies on why they are doing it, and they're not directing the companies to not to do so. So in MNC context, this Cognizant case study would be very clear on what they are trying to do. So I have taken one, and another one in a mid-level company I have taken another case study. So what Cognizant 2000 around now October-November period, what they have estimated is to be prepared for the next upcoming challenges in 2020 and further, they need to restructure. They need to have a plan, a growth plan, which will enable them to be competent to challenge the upcoming challenges because of the technology changes and the environment changes they foresee. So what the board of directors did is they chart out a plan called Fit for 2020 Fit for Growth Plan, and the quarter report of the November, I think October-November quarter report they released has very clear detail on what is Fit for Growth Plan. And in the Fit for Growth Plan, what they have mentioned is they are going to send out 12,000 employees. And out of 12,000 employees, they will do it in phase so that they can absorb the changes gradually. And once they execute the plan, they will have annual savings of 550 million USD. So it's and the the cost to implement this, cost to send the 12,000 people out is 200 million maximum. So this is the economic calculation they presented in the board of directors discussion, and it also came up in the quarterly report. And from that, they are consistently executing it. In 2019, around 6,000 people already left, and 2020, another 6K is being sent out, and they clearly mentioning that by mid 2020 we will be sending them out, which local news are all talking about Cognizant retrenchments now, because all the bench employees have received show cause notice, and the people who are into BI tools, the Tableau and a few other tools, they are receiving PIP, performance improvement plan, and on the context of non-performance, they are being sent out. So this companies, it took a management decision, and it took the target. It has a target which has to be sent out, and they made the employees as non-performers, and they are sending them out. So this is how the MNCs are doing, even in this pandemic situation, and for the decision they took before the pandemic. So that is the important context, and they would be earning 550 million after executing this every year. So, and now it's going on, the issues are going on. We are in touch with Cognizant employees. We are trying to tell them what is the legal rights they have. The other case is this, it's an SME, company called Innova I Solutions. It's a NASSCOM member. So it's part of the employer body. And they are sending out employees in batch by batch. Around 20 employees approached us once the management forced them to resign. So according to the Indian labor law, they have to they can terminate only on a few grounds. It can be an absenteeism, or it can be criminal activity, or it can be non-performance, but with proof. There should be a clear evidence on they have given chances to improve them, multiple chances, and in spite of that, they can't improve. The company can terminate their employment. The best option companies see is as forcing employees to resign. So in the in the overall management report, it won't termed as, it can be termed as voluntary retirement, and they can voluntary separation, and they don't need to get any permission from the government. So what this Innova does is, it is growing in a 55% year on year. It's going in 55% growth rate on only the profit terms. We are not considering the asset they are increasing every year. We are not considering the investment they are doing in financial sector or material and immaterial assets. Only the profit terms, they are going 55% at growth rate. And their current year comes to around 117 rupees, Indian rupees crore. So, and their employee expenditure comes to 8 crore out of the 117. The overall employee salary count expenditure from their annual statement. So they force the employees to resign, stating that we don't have enough projects because now the US is closed because of the pandemic. So you need to resign. And they are forcing employees, threatening employees, we will destroy your career if you don't resign. So this is the steps that taken by the even SME. The same formula has been taken by the Cognizant also. They will also put the employees in a position where they will be feeling the guilt and they'll be resigning. And employees don't have the visibility of the corporate governance or what is their revenue, what is their management discussing. And about the rights also, they are ignorant about the rights also, because our education system doesn't talk about what is the rights, what are the labor laws available. But everybody, all the education prepares us to be a wage labor. But they don't talk about all the rights we have, all the protection we have. So that ignorance is being used by the managements and even government whenever they want. So the in the both the earlier case, we have, as a next step, we have to take it to the government to enforce the laws already available. We have job security, we have multiple aspects of labor laws which ensures that it should not be done people should not, the management should not force to resign. The management, if has any laws, it has to follow a legal course where it has to inform the revenue department, get approval, and then give the list in the first last in first out order, and then send the people who recently joined. So a person who, an employee who employed in an organization for more years, will get the better job security. So that's what the law says. But the identification of employees in when it is not enforced, when the law are not enforced, company easily identifying them on economical grounds. So whoever are relatively highly paid in the team. So if, say, in a team there are people who are earning 20,000 rupees per month and 15,000 rupees per month, they weed out the 20,000 rupees per month employees first, and they keep on adding people with lower wages, 11,000, 10,000 rupees. And I think after this pandemic, it will be even 8,000 or 7,000, because the job market is very worse. People lives are very worse. Anything, if the management gives, people will be ready to join, because the growth of the unemployment. So when we take it to the labor department, labor welfare department, there's no action by them. And even after the management clearly announced that we are going to send out 12,000 employees in their official document, they're also giving press release after the quarterly report. The labor department across country, they are not taking any proactive measures. Their approach is, you let the employees come to us, we will support. Even if the employees come to them, they will take at least 7 to 8 months to even finish the first level, which is the conciliation level. They'll discuss with the management and the employees union to come to a common understanding. Only then we can put a case against the company. So that's how the labor law approach here. And once we put the case, it might go to few years or so. There's no guarantee that it will get end within a year. So, and in the pandemic condition, we have filed multiple petitions, multiple cases. The labor department is completely non-functional. Nobody is there. Nobody is bothering about the retrenchments happening. So the companies are in a holiday mood. They are doing whatever they want. They are cutting the jobs, they're cutting the leaves, they're cutting the salary, and pushing the employees' livelihood to worst situation, while the profit maximization aspects are continuously increasing. So these are the problems we think are prevalent in this industry. One is there's no job security. So whenever the general understanding is, if you are 35 plus in age, you are the target. Soon you'll be sent out. And the management have no understanding of, there are 99% of humans working with them, and they can discuss with them if they want to make a democratic or consensus-based discussion. But the board of directors, which is not even 1% in the organization, takes decision which affects the entire organization, and there can't be a mechanism to show the dissent. Nobody can talk about the dissent. So whatever the decision, if the 12,000 people has to be sent out, it has to be sent out. There's no any other go. So the unilateral decision making is a major problem. And they purposefully have black boxes like performance appraisals. There's no common standards. There's no transparent method how they are evaluating it. All the bell curves and objective performance appraisals are black boxes. They are using it whenever they take a unilateral decision and to implement the unilateral decision. So all the resignation happens are because the employees are forced that you are a non-performer. So you need to understand that. So you need to resign. So that is the way in which they are executing. And because of the lack of job security and because of the lack of transparency and the unilateral decision making, this identity-based discrimination is happening across the industry. So we are whenever there is a mass retrenchment happening, we are personally we are getting informations on. We are being the employees are being targeted by language. We have multiple language-based communities here. So language-based target is happening when project has majority or the project leader is Tamil. His majority or his next level will be Tamil, and very few will be other languages, Hindi or Telugu or Kannada, kind of. So when set of people asked by management to be retrenched, this topmost Tamil guy will give the other language people's name. So that is how they are being. They are forming a social structure inside the company when there is no job security to secure their job. And similarly, the caste angle. Whenever there is a retrenchment happening, we see, or because of the organization structure, we see most of the people who are in the senior leadership team and the topmost directors are from the upper caste. The very least from Dalit section and Muslim communities. So from the social minorities, the representation is very, very low. We can even say negligible. And the socially forward section are the ones who are in the topmost management. And gender also, like the World Economic Forum, I think in the January or February, they have released a report saying that with the policies the government and the multiple governments and the corporates are implementing, it will take 251 years to have the equal pay and equal opportunity, which they say that the pioneers of the leading organization of capitalism, World Economic Forum, which formulates theoretical framework for the capitalist governments, capitalist system. They are saying after reviewing the 20 years of their attempts, saying it will take 251 years, which almost says there can't be any gender equality inside the companies based on the reports they are getting from their members. So this is how the identity discrimination comes up, and we were getting a lot of calls, but the primary reason being we see is the lack of job security and the economical decisions taken by the company in unilateral fashion, and the transparency, lack of transparency. So these are the problems we identified as major issues. So what we are doing is to counter this, we are trying to educate employees on Indian legal framework. Now the government is also working towards dissolving 44 labor laws and amalgamating into 4 codes. It's a major thing. They are doing away with all the employees protection aspects, and they are moving towards employer favoring actions. So we are trying to educate employees on what is the existing rights in the current framework, and also exploring on the upcoming draft and bills in the parliament. And we are educating employees on the corporate governance, how to read the annual reports, how to read the statements, profit loss statement, cash flow statement, balance sheets, and how to read the management analysis, which is a section. It should be mandatory in the annual report. And there is a corporate law. We have corporate law, and as part of that, we need to understand the company should disclose certain informations. So how to understand that? So those are the aspects we are educating employees. And with all that, with understanding the available framework, we need to go for an action. So we are educating employees on the trade union, especially the collective bargain aspect, how to do collective bargain, and what is the history of trade union, and what is the experience of trade union across industry. So with taking forward those 3 aspects, we think we will be able to unionize in a workplace, not in industry-wide, but in a workplace, in a particular company. And unionizing the workplace would be the first step to democratize the workplace, to counter the unilateral decision-making. And from there, we can move towards welfare of the employees, the mental and physical and economical welfare of the employees and their family. So in workplace level unions across globe, what we see is we have a few important case studies like MPS Employees Union. It's a Macmillan publication service. It's now turned into the Macmillan books turned into a e-publishing company, and they have a employees union in Bangalore, India. It's the first instance where the employees have formed office level, workplace level union. And we also have Kickstarter union in Kickstarter employees unionized in US, and the HCL outsourced employees who are Google's outsourced employees who are part of HCL in Pittsburgh case study. So these are the case studies we are campaigning among our members to showcase this is how the workplace level unionization happens, and this is the experience of people. So we are in detail. We are campaigning on through social media on what are the laws, what if law-based FAQs, trade union history, because the Tamil Nadu Tamil Nadu has rich trade union experience. In India, where the trade union movement started from Tamil Nadu, we have Madras when it was Madras presidency and under British rule. The first trade union was started here, and so the movement is strong. We have a lot of documents on how, when there was no history of trade union, how people started organizing. So we are taking it to the people, and we are conducting planned activities. So as an organization, we are functioning when we put memberships in different companies through online and even offline before the pandemic. And we engage the members to do planned activities, and the planned activities will have the previous labor law, trade union history, collective bargaining case studies aspects, and through social media we're writing, we are creating posters, and discussions are happening periodically. So every month we have planned activity, and that increases membership to an extent. And we're also campaigning periodically. We'll take membership campaigns, and we'll increase the membership. So the format we are moving towards is to convert the members into cadres, and the cadres to leaders, the trade union leaders. So this is the approach, the fact, problems and approach we have, we are moving towards. So I think we can have questions and discussions on this, or anything related to my experience or the Unite experience we can share.
Hey, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your wonderful talk and experience. So before starting the question and answer, I'd like to really thank you, Welkin, for your time in the early morning and coming and sharing information. And really, it's a nice experience that I like to share, that we were part of. I also started my activism as a socio-cultural organization in Bangalore, where we were teaching the kids belong to the Dalit, or the so-called oppressed caste people in Bangalore slum. And from there, we were politicalized. Then some of our comrades and friends move into the trade union, and where they were really able to set up a sort of workers group followed by the Satyam fiasco. And it's a really nice experience. Now after listening to them, really the people, those who are part of such a socio-cultural organization, can easily understand when there is a retrenchment comes, and the people from the so-called lower caste people are fired first. That is what Ambedkar told, that they are the one who hired last and fired first. And exactly why we are not able to mobilize and unionize the working class in India is because there is not only a class division, but also a caste division, what Ambedkar called, it's not a division of labor, but a division of laborers. So just to highlight one of the 2 points that what Welkin added, I say Welkin rather, Welkin added, that always the government gives the net addition. If there are some 1,000 people added in the whole industry, does not mean that they are 1,000 freshly added. What happened? They would have fired 2,000 people, those who are well paid, and they would have added another 3,000 people not so paid. And second thing, there is a stigma in the working class, especially because of the bourgeois propaganda, the capitalist propaganda, that the workers organizing it like a sort of a stigma, or the workers should not do it. It's something really unethical, sorry, or it is not approved practice. But as a matter of fact, all the capitalists are organized. If you go anywhere, they have all the chambers of commerce. And for India, they have ASSOCHAM and NASSCAM, but they will not let the workers to be organized. So as Welkin explained, we cannot solve some of the problems without being organized, especially the identity-based firings and retrenchments, and the government itself is not following the labor laws and always favoring the employers when there is an employee-employer dispute. So now the forum is open for the question. So please ask the questions, the comments.
Karthik, Madhi here.
Madhi, wait, I will put you in the spotlight.
Okay, sure.
You turn your video on? Or? Oh, Madhi, what name?
Should I stop the screen sharing?
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, Madhi, which is your video? Oh, you're not in video.
Yeah, I'm in just audio, Karthik.
Oh, then fine, you go ahead. I'll put the.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. It was great information. It's really pretty new for me. Thanks a lot, and it was a great awareness. Thanks for your time. And I have a quick question. So, with everything getting privatized recently, and especially with BJP in power, and a lot of government enterprises and a lot of industries getting towards privatization. So, is there any awareness or something can be created to make reservation in private sectors? Are we doing anything for that? That's my first question. And also, can we do something to make sure we add all these labor laws as part of company induction? Because every company has 2 days, 3 days of induction the moment you join. Especially these kind of things was never part of those induction. So are we doing anything for that? Thanks. Those are my 2 questions.
Okay. So this reservation in the private sector, it is demand by all. It is an ongoing demand by all the central trade unions, but that demand is not resonating with the employees. For one is this sector is where the people are earning living wage. So where the number of comparatively to other employment, they will not be earning this much of wage in India. So they think if anything happens, like if labor law comes in or if unionized, these they will not be in the relatively best position to get the salary. So there is a huge fear among employees. We even campaigned once on private reservation in private sector when during the election period in a place called Coimbatore. Where the left party candidate were contesting, and he also won. And it is a second largest cluster of IT employees in Tamil Nadu, next to Chennai. So when we started campaigning on that, we faced a lot of questions on that particular point. We had a lot of other 10 to 20 points on job security, labor law, all those things, but nothing. Only those points people were debating, discussing, arguing with us why you should have, why you want to spoil all those things. So the awareness on, I think first we need to get people aware on the rights, labor laws, unionization. Once people get organized, then we would be in a better position to talk about the private sector reservation. But without that, we even had discussion among the leadership of Unite. It is not possible to bring social justice into the system at all. It is a pyramid. That's how the company sees it, right? That is why they are retrenching people in the mid-level, because they are not able to absorb the mid-level people to the next level. So they are observing only the social background, people based on social background at the topmost. They are not observing people who have worked and come to the top of the leadership. Nobody is allowing people who have worked for so long to come to the top of the company without social background. So those kind of situations which we think are not resonating among the ITM, which makes the private sector reservation not resonating. But whenever issue comes up, whenever a clear case comes up, we are talking about it, we are campaigning about it. That creates an wave, but it's not major. It's not resonating in a way that compared to job security. So that's the first point. The second is on the induction aspect. So this, the companies has to comply with ISO 27000. They have to comply with multiple ISO standards. Multiple all standards have a section stating that this company should have a document which says are they complying with the local laws or not. There is something called self-certification by the ministry, labor ministry, which is asking whether these companies are following self-certification. They're displaying the labor laws in a sheet, in a publicly visible area. Are they communicating their rights to employees? All those things are there, already there. But when it comes to practice, you will see a huge board with all unreadable, minute, with very small font size. They have the entire labor law poster posted there. It will not be understandable to people. People will ignore it and see. And it will be in the section where the securities are standing. So nobody will even be ready to stand and read. People will try to bypass that. They will not try to get attention while reading that. So all those things are there. When in induction, the problem is who will ask the companies to add it to the induction? It has to be government, and government are not ready to take up any discussion with the employers, stating that it will affect the ease of doing business. If you see Niti Aayog, the body which the BJP government formed after throwing away the planning commission, their important job is to ensure ease of doing business based on the UN Sustainable Development Program. The UN Sustainable Development Program is, if you see the Niti Aayog, you will understand to whose sustainability it is functioning. It is only for the employees and the ruling class it is functioning. All the labor laws, amalgamation, the codification, all is part of that. They are trying to effectively function for the ruling class. That is how this huge corporate contributions coming to BJP, all those is part of that. So government is not forcing that. So employees can, the other option is to union can request the managed companies, but we are not in the strength. There are around 7 lakh people in Tamil Nadu, only IT employees, direct employees. And our strength is around 450, not even 1%. We are gradually growing. We are consistently working on. We will eventually reach a 10% or so in another 4 to 5 years. Without numbers, nobody will recognize us. So we are not in a position to demand that now. And employees also, the third option is the employees who are stakeholder of the companies, who are the 99% who are contributing to the profit or revenue generation of the company, should ask for it. And they are also not aware of what is the labor law available. So that ignorance is what being used by the company and the HR departments on behalf of company. So since we don't have enough numbers to question that, there is no possibility of asking management to reform all those policies to improve diversity and inclusion, to improve job security, to improve understanding of labor laws and rights. We are working towards that. That is why to ensure the job security, it is first, we think it is first necessary to put the unionization of jobs, unionization of workplace as a primary activity. Only from there we can move to any reforms inside company and pressurize the government outside. So that is the view on including labor law and induction process.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Valki. Before the next question, I would like to also add our experience in it. We as a group of friends and others organized the seminar on reservation private sector in February 2014. And we were at that time part of a free software movement, Karnataka, some of the friends, and others were part of ITEC. That us, Velkin is part of a union of IT and IT employees center. That there are comrades who formed the IT and IT employees. Now, what they call as ITEC, IT and IT employees center. And when we try to mobilize the IT workers in supporting the private sector reservation, eventually you are able to get only the members of the FSMK and ITEC, and we are not able to get others. So I think on that our experience was the same, but now it is after like almost 8 years. I don't know whether there's a change, because now we are seeing there is a sense of political self-awareness. The Dalits and other OBCs are developing in IT, but I don't know whether they are the force to be reckoned with to place this demand. So now I would like to, we can have a next question. Professor Meena, you can go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Unmuted myself. Thank you. Thank you so much for a very informative talk and comments as well. I just have a very broad comment first and then a question. My broad comment is that what you explained about decisions having been made in advance and then implemented now under the cover of the pandemic is true across many different sectors. I mean, here in the UK, it is happening even in the education sector. So I'm in a university where it has decided to rationalize courses. And they've decided that they're going to not be offering some courses, including mine, for example, philosophy, which is from coming September, because they want in the end to lose some people. And they've got the idea that they are going to make a profit in the next few years to come out of this, because student numbers are falling, not enough people are applying for positions, and there's a huge problem of people being able to move from country A to B. Brexit has happened, and all of those factors. And that has meant that the stronger subjects, whichever they are going to be saved at the cost of the weaker subjects. So that's happening. And I think that's a general problem that one has to think about, how one can save what is valuable when at a time when the profitable is going to be protected regardless of value, right? So that general idea that the profitable will be protected at the cost of value is going to happen, is happening. So that's just a general point. But I wanted to ask you the specific question, since you mentioned that in the Indian legal framework, a lot of changes are happening, as in you said that there is an amalgamation of various laws happening and removal of employee rights, and there is adding of employers' rights. This seems to be something particular with this government that it is happening, I think, especially if you also see, like, at the same time, we are seeing changes in the agricultural sector. Okay, so in the agricultural sector, like getting rid of the laws from before on, for example, Agricultural Produce Marketing Regulation Act. So farmers they're in the name of giving freedom to the agriculturists. So the protection that small farmers had, that their price is protected and they have an organized market or mandi where they can sell. Instead of that, is suddenly letting loose everything so that whoever wants to make profit in whichever way is able to. And obviously the small farmers will be sacrificed in the process, right? So the same is happening there. And this is happening by changing laws. And because, of course, at the center, there is no challenge to the changes that are happening. It's happening very quietly, but the fundamental structure, it seems, of the country is changing, right all the way from the top to the bottom. That is very frightening, I think. And I was wondering whether when these changes are happening, is there any link that as a trade union you make with lawyers? Is there a possibility? I mean, otherwise there's a huge gap in the way in which challenges are posed in India and compared to, for example, UK or the USA, right? So the California case you're talking about is one person's case, which in California is being taken up by using existing laws, and it will have set a precedent. Is there something like that? Is there any possibility at all that remains, or are we really doomed? As in, nothing is possible except what you are suggesting, that obviously the old method of building your bargaining power through expanding trade union activity. That's a very standard kind of old system. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfectly fine, but there are all the social obstacles you yourself have listed to why you can't make that happen. So the other arm, I'm thinking, the legal arm of things, you know, maybe public interest litigation or some of the things you're saying are astonishing. That you know, that the way in which laws are being broken and the government is doing nothing about it. Is there any possibility that somehow the existing laws, before they completely disappear, can still be used?
Okay. So this approach to, or the legal approach to use the existing framework to win our rights. So that's what we did for the, I think, past 6 years or so. There were multiple, I'll quote few examples. We were thousands of students recruited from colleges directly, campus interviews, through campus interviews by a company called L&T Infotech. And similarly, HCL also did that around 2013 period, I think 13-14 period. So they made the students wait for a year, and after made the students wait for a year. In between, they had multiple meetings, ensuring the parents that their students will be taken inside company. They just need to wait few more months because of the external market conditions, all those things. And after a year, they conducted one more exam. So these students were already passed multiple levels of interviews, tests, and then selected. And now they are conducting one more exam, and what they told everybody failed, and they sent them out. This disrupt most of the students' life, because most of their marriage got stopped because they're unemployed. Nobody were able to get job. Most of them were not able to get job because after completion of 1 year, you're not a fresher in Indian terms, and freshers can't apply for non-freshers can't apply for jobs. It is only freshers can apply for jobs. So all those stupidity available here, and those so these students got into depression, and they approached us. We were traveling before forming union. We were traveling with them. We were approaching all the legal steps across with some 1,000 students. And we were analyzing the legal options available. So when we tried to, we reached High Court and Supreme Court lawyers. We were discussing with them, and by their suggestion, what they told us, we can't challenge this because there is no employer-employee relationship at all, and we can't even consider this a cheating, because they told they have not given a confirmation in any written document that they will definitely take you. So all those things were there. So we anyway we filed a case with the Labor Department, and we pressurized them, and they used all the loopholes to send us out. You are not a registered union. These students are not employees; they are students. So we can't do anything, and they're just unemployed. They don't have any relationship. That's one case study. The other thing is this Cognizant-like situation, where whenever we try to make labor lawyers or labor department proactively take this issue when the companies publicly announce that they're going to retrench. The labor department is discouraging it. The one who's the responsible department from the government is discouraging it. They are even conducting meetings with the employers based on the complaints we are giving and not including us inside the meetings. So there is the company, the labor departments and the government, they are clearly not encouraging and they are not supporting any activities we are taking through legal courts. They're either delaying or they are not giving any avenue to even get in. We had multiple discussions. We are after exploring all those options, we have choose, okay, let's then try the collective bargain method. So that is the experience we have. And even after establishing union, whenever we take individual cases, we think most of the employees who approached us with issues, they don't have any legal background. They don't have any, when I mean legal background, they don't have any person to support them from their family or friends legally. So when they go to a labor lawyer, labor lawyers also, they are clueless how to face this MNCs. And MNCs have full-time paid lawyers who can challenge in different grounds, and they are squashing the cases. But there are few cases which won, and that became a precedence to, as an example to communicate with the employees that, see, there is a hope, you can try, but it will take 3 to 4 years. No employees are ready to take this fight for more than 3 to 4 months. They are not able to sustain financially. So these are the bottlenecks we have. So while we're trying to approach legally, without huge financial background, we will not be able to go to Supreme Court or something and consistently fight. And nobody is ready to fight more than 3 to 4 months.
So thank you very much. I'll just quickly say, so I understand what you're saying. I understand completely. In fact, even in the California case, it looks like it's taken about 4 years from 2016 when it started to the time when it has come to court, even in the United States. So a legal process can, of course, always be excruciatingly long. And you're right to say, unless there are some other ways of supporting people to go through a court case, is not going to be likely to get you to the winning point. But I was still thinking that in terms of the democratic culture, if you like, that even if one has the view that it is likely to fail, a number of such cases with dedicated lawyers who putting forward, even if it's going to not succeed, would be, in terms of the understanding of the rights of people itself, be a tool. So you can tell people about rights, but what do you do with those rights if those rights are not actionable? If you do some action on the basis of those rights, a legal action, even one that is likely to fail, that is a part of the education. So I suppose people have tried measures and they fail, and then they're more inclined to do something else, as in, use force, as in numbers, more go towards bargaining, So I'm thinking these two things probably are, but in order to do that, you do need a very dedicated set of lawyers, a network of lawyers, who can possibly give that support which is necessary. And since you're talking about the question of caste also, Dalit lawyers would be really key, I think, in this activity, if it were possible. So at least we think here that we really need to have some kind of a network of lawyers. So when anything comes up, people are able to immediately share information about what works, what doesn't work, what can work, what might be done. And the knowledge that individual lawyers might have about past cases can be passed on more easily and quickly to other people. So, I mean, otherwise I'm not thinking, obviously, in some liberal framework that law is what should be used. I totally accept that law has its very severe limitations. but as something which is educates people, and also as something which makes people aware of what is their right. It is quite a useful tool, and one can't just let the existing laws which give some protection just dissipate, just finish. We have to fight against that also. Somebody else has a question. I'll shut up now. Thank you so much.
So who wants to go? Lakshmi, you want to go, or can we?
Yeah, if no one has question, I can go.
I think you can go.
Yeah, Karthik. Karthik Madhi here.
Yeah, Madhi, yeah.
Karthik, just a follow-up question. I think government provides a free legal aid, right? Like public prosecutor. Do you have any option from Labor Ministry to handle this as the previous person who asked that question? So we need lawyers where we cannot afford, right? As an unemployee, I cannot have money to spend for lawyers who can handle these labor laws in court. So do we have any public prosecutor option, free legal aid from the government to handle these kind of cases?
Okay. The public, I'm exactly not sure on labor code whether we can opt for it. And one thing, I think that they will have an economical slab for that, and IT employees definitely not will not come into that. So that's one. The other point is this. Even in Tamil Nadu, even if you need to go to court, you can't directly go to labor court. You need to first have a discussion with the management, and once if it is failed, then you need to have a discussion with the labor commissioner, and that this process will almost take 7 months to 8 months, or maybe even a year. And after that, you can, based on the failure report given by the commissioner only, you can go to labor court. So that is the procedure here. So sustaining people for at least a year or so, even to start the case, is a issue. Other than that, as a union, we can fight. But we need to increase the numbers. There are clear cases like we can fight for standing orders. Standing order is where the company employment order should be standardized based on the government requirement. Right now, every company has their own model, their own rules, which is not which will act in favor of them. So that case, there are a few aspects like that which has to be fought in legal, but numbers is what number is required, because without numbers we will not be able to mobilize fund. So
Got
that
it.
is the understanding.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah.
Lakshmi.
Sorry, I interrupted. Lakshmi, sorry, Lakshmi.
No problem. No, I have not seen that. I've seen only Lakshmi. So it's okay.
No, it's good. It's good. So all these questions help me to refine my question better. So last point you mentioned is that we need to have mass, right? The point is you want to get more people focus on this to understand this is our basic problem. If we don't take care of this now, we will be suffering forever. So we have to go back to this moment. Oh, 1 second.
Okay.
I'm really sorry. I'm outside, so there is more noise. So my question here is, the only way to fight is mass. How is there any way that every single IT person work with other person to get more real feedback of their losing job or discrimination, whatever that helps us to improve the social movement? That it's not going to be anymore an individual problem, right? It's going to be a community, and it's going to be every single person's problem. So what is your idea especially I'm asking in a women standpoint. What would the women role in this big, like many women going to IT jobs now? So what would be your recommendation? What would they do now? Sorry, question is big, but answer might be.
Okay. So I'll answer the women part first. So this IT companies, they have a pattern around 30 plus percentage of the lowermost the pyramid's lowermost section has 30 to 40% of women. When they go up, some companies it goes to 10% or less. So that's the max. 10% is the max in the leadership. And the issues, we tried conducting a survey with the just a minute, my laptop is about to die. I just connect the charger. Sorry.
Karthi, do you want to give some feedback while he's charging?
No, I think the first question, that is what they are trying. They are taking up issue, but also they are trying the one-to-one campaign to get into the people. And sometimes when the issue comes, they are able to sensitize the employees. One example, what I have seen, when the Vembu Sridhar has issued a tweet, right, that he is attending a program that is organized by the RSS. In the process, they are able to reach some people. That they were explained that how this employers are taking side with the more semi-fascist or a fascist party. That's what they are doing. They are not. That's what he is telling, right? The only example where they are able to people to unionize the people in the single companies. That MPS.
Yeah. Sorry. So what I was saying is this: we conducted almost one year, 2 months back. We conducted a survey on the issues faced by women in IT companies. So there are difficulties in collecting surveys because people are they're hesitant to give details, like when especially on the issues faced by them. So we are communicating with them, and we are collecting data. So some attempts like that has been done. So what we see is the sexual harassment cases, especially when inside companies, even female employees don't know that what the law says as sexual harassment, or the POSH Act, what we have in India, says as wrong. So the regular trainings which required for their male and female counterparts, all those things are not known to them. In terms of the equal pay, equal opportunity, and maternity-related leaves, maternity-related the whatever they have to
Packages,
get,
compensations.
compensation, and even the rights they have in the maternity period. All those things, women employees, they don't know about. So usually company, what they do when women employee gets into maternity period, they are putting them, they'll discontinue their service. They'll make them rejoin as a fresher, or they will put them in the least bucket as non-performer. So all those things are not covered by law. So, but from the employee's point of view, when we surveyed, they say they don't know that the POSH committees existing in their office, but all the IT companies have POSH committees, prevention of sexual harassment committees, and they don't know what is their maternity rights, and they are at least once they have been retrenched, or they have been sent out of job because of maternity. They have taken break. Because of maternity, they have job breaks. So these are the data we have collected, and we are now even trying to do a survey. I think today we'll be releasing a survey on the work from home. So
Okay.
how the work from home being perceived by the employees. So now and then we are conducting surveys, and if it is not about issues or like sexual harassment or employee related employment discontinued related issues, people are responding back. We are
Okay.
getting a few hundreds of responses, and we are trying to understand from that. That's how we are also attempting to understand the employees, and trying to post the issues also to, in a way, trying to post the issues also into employees. So such an issues are there. Do you know those issues are existing? So this is how we are working.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Women part, in any other suggestions that you have? You started with women part. So any other thing?
Understanding the issues from employees.
Yeah.
That was your first point, right?
Yeah.
So the major aspect, the major mode of getting feedback is through one-to-one communication, and through the phone calls we are getting to help, to in need of help, and that is the first form of getting input. The second is on these, like the surveys we told. The surveys we did on the sexual harassment, or now the ongoing work from home. So this is how we are doing, and sometimes the media does investigative reports on some issues like Maternity Act or POSH committee. So those are the reports we have. So that is one. We are not able to take mass survey, mass data collection from employees, because we are itself not. We are very small. And we can't physically go to companies, because every IT park will not even allow us inside, because of only the ID card holders can get in, and only after getting into the IT park we can get into the companies. So meeting employees personally around the IT parks is very rare, because very few out of 10,000 employees who are working in IT park, only very few, maybe 100 or so will come out for tea or something. Other all aspects are inside the companies. So we are not able to survey physically also. Only the remote, the online method we have, and online method also has limitations to reach, because not everybody is working in MNCs, and people who are working in MNCs still have a fear of communicating or surveying fellow employees. So we are slowly breaking that problem, and trying to reach the maximum employees.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think there is another question, Karthik, for someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different question. May I follow up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is that you in the beginning gave us statistics about employment statistics of various kinds, and you showed that there was a declining employment opportunity, and particularly you said that the net addition is consistently declining. You gave us factors for MNCs of IT providers, but what are the factors internally? Not for MNCs, but for the local IT companies. What are the factors? Why is it that, one would think otherwise, that in the Indian market itself for goods, consumer goods of various kinds, including, various telephony, of course, but laptops, etc., should be increasing. But, and that somehow, one would expect that IT services, at least in terms of the service part of the IT, if not the production, should be increasing. So why is it? What are the factors? So why is that decreasing? Why is there not an increase in it?
Okay. No, from the whatever data I have, and the reasons or the factors I have are from the management documents, the company's annual report. Because nobody else worries about that, and nobody else has data to investigate on that. So from the management risk, from the company's risk assessment, these are the factors they say as the major factors which are reducing their revenue, which in turn reduce the employment. The other key factor which I see is the changing technology. The companies, the World Economic Forum's fourth industrial revolution is giving a new theoretical framework to for the companies to restructure themselves into a different organization, to adapt more gig economic or gig workers, and do away with the permanent workers, and to adapt latest technologies and move out all the old technologies like the BI tools and old tools and technologies for development. But in the business processing sector, the BPOs, where the IT tools and technologies used to service, I think it is moving towards US and UK. Not and slowly the companies are getting closed here, or they are getting automated. The BPOs who process KYC documents, I know a few companies which are closed down because the KYC document processing got automated, and these automated softwares can do it in few hours what hundreds of employees do for a day or so.
Sorry, what is this? I'm not IT literate that way. What is this documenting process you're talking about?
KYC is the know your customer document.
Yes.
It's the document followed to prevent the anti-money laundering activities. So it is being followed across all the countries. All the countries are forcing all services to be done only with KYC.
I see.
So everybody has a KYC document, all the service provider. So those documents are when they earlier they were not digitized, and for digitizing, most of there are few BPOs who are digitizing it. They'll from the pictures sent by the client, they will do the data entry, and they will create the digital version of it. That aspect now is automated to major extent, and it can be done in few hours what the hundreds of employees have done in a day or so. So that is one aspect, and I think similarly the automating the growth of new technologies, machine learning especially, is creating a dent in IT market space, IT enabled service sector, where the BPOs, KPOs, medical coding companies. So there the challenges are, I think that is affecting the employment scenario. But that is seen as a positive aspect from the management reports. Right. They think they are evolving to the different level. But in terms of job numbers, I think technology, the main automation technology and the protectionism is what causing job to move away and job to change shape.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yeah. So now we have come to the end of the session. Thank you, Virgin. Thank you very much. And also, since you are doing a survey, and we also have friends in India, share the survey with us, and please free to send us, and also post in the Ambedkar King Study Circle, so that many people in India also can see. And the people here also, I would like to request that there are some attempt to unionize the people in US as part of this talk where Alagumani Virgin is speaking from Unite. That we try to have somebody from the Kickstart or the HCL, but we were not able to do that at the last moment because there are some clashes with their schedule. But next time we definitely will be holding someone from the PwC or the Kickstart Union or the HCL Pittsburgh, or somebody from there is another union in US who are organizing the IT sector, is the Communication Workers of America, CWA. That they are all working on the same line that worker has to be organized. And soon Ambedkar King Study Circle will organize a talk with such people in taking the issue of the working class. So beside that, I would like to thank you all once again. So, Welkin, if you want to add anything, you can please add before we close.
Yeah. So thanks for the Ambedkar King Study Circle for organizing this session, because from our perspective, from Unite perspective, we think the industry is distributed across the world. If you take the MNCs, they are distributed across the world, and we are very much part of the global value chain. And we are, in fact, the backbone of the global value chain. So unless until we understand the global value chain and we understand how to put a collective resistance in the global value chain, we will not be able to put major pressure, because whenever we meet ministers to give petition, they clearly say that we can't do anything because these companies are way behind, before they are not in our discussion level. So they are acting as an independent kind of a country. So only the global coordinated effort can yield more result. And I think the issues will be same across different countries. Not though I talked only about the Indian scenario, but I think the scenario would be more or less similar across the various countries. So we are also trying to reach out to all existing unions or the effort towards organizing employees in different companies. And I think the effort for the Ambedkar King Study Circle to do that in similar lines also will be very useful to us, and we can it will be very much useful in the long run towards the cause. So thanks for the audience and the questions raised, and that also improved my understanding as well as to get more clarity from explaining to you. So thanks for the team, and if need anything, we have the Facebook page, Twitter, and all those aspects, social media presence. So ping us, we can discuss, and any other discussion or support which can be done, we'll discuss. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.